The footsteps faded, but the fear didn't. I could still feel the weight of their presence, lingering just out of sight. Suddenly, the woman's grip on my arm tightened. Her nails dug into my skin as if she were holding onto me for dear life. Her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto something behind me. Before I could react, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. I turned slowly, dread washing over me like a wave. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might give me away. There, standing in the shadows, was the general. He stepped forward, a smile playing at the corners of his lips, but it wasn't the kind of smile that reassured you. It was a predator smile. "I told you," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "There are no secrets in my house." It was no longer just fear. Now it was survival. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like they were anchored to the ground. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The woman beside me was frozen too, her fingers still digging into my arm, her breathing shallow and quick. The general's eyes flicked toward her, and for a brief moment, I saw a flash of recognition. She must have known him, or he knew her, whatever the connection, it didn't matter. We were both trapped, and he was closing in. He took another step forward, his hand resting lightly on the gun at his side. His presence filled the room, dominating it, suffocating us with his control. "You've been very busy, haven't you?" he said, his tone dripping with accusation. "Digging where you shouldn't, asking questions no one has the right to ask." His voice was low, every word measured, designed to slice through the silence like a knife. I glanced at the woman, hoping for some kind of cue, but her gaze stayed locked on the general. Her grip tightened again, urging me to stay calm, but calm wasn't an option. "I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered, though the words felt empty. He knew. He had always known. The general tilted his head slightly, his eyes narrowing as if considering his next move. "Oh, but you do," he replied, his voice smooth and confident. "You've seen things. Things I can't allow to leave this room." My heart pounded in my chest as the weight of his words sank in. I had uncovered something dangerous, something that could unravel his entire regime. And now he had me cornered, no escape in sight. The woman beside me shifted slightly, her eyes darting toward the exit, but the general caught the movement. "Don't even think about it," he warned, his smile disappearing, replaced by a cold, hard stare. "You're not going anywhere." In that moment, I knew there was no reasoning with him. Whatever chance I had to talk my way out of this was long gone. The general's eyes bore into mine, searching for any sign of defiance, any weakness he could exploit. Then, without warning, the door behind him creaked open, and a figure appeared in the doorway. For a brief moment, the general's attention flickered, his focus drawn to the new presence. My pulse quickened. Could this be the distraction we needed? The figure stepped into the light, a young soldier, trembling as he approached the general. He whispered something hurriedly into the general's ear. Whatever he said, it was enough to make the general's eyes narrow with frustration. The general turned his back to us, speaking in low, hushed tones to the soldier. This was our chance. The woman tugged on my arm, her eyes pleading with me to move, to act before it was too late. But just as I took a step toward the door, the general spun around, gun in hand. I said, his voice sharp as a knife, "You're not going anywhere." The barrel of the gun pointed directly at my chest. Time seemed to freeze. The air felt thick, like molasses, as the gravity of the moment hit me. In the silence, I could hear my own heartbeat. Thump. 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 And then, out of nowhere, a loud bang echoed through the room. The woman beside me screamed, dropping to the floor. My vision blurred, but one thing was clear, the general was still standing, his gun smoking, and someone else had fallen. I gasped, blinking through the haze. There, on the ground, lay the young soldier who had just entered. His body slumped lifelessly against the wall, the blood pooling beneath him. The general's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "I told you," he repeated, his voice icy and detached. "There are no secrets in my house." I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled. I wanted to scream, to run, to do something, but fear paralyzed me. The general stepped over the soldier's body as if it were nothing. His eyes locked onto mine. "We're not done yet," he said softly, his words dripping with menace. "Not by a long shot." He raised the gun again, this time pointing it directly at the woman. Her eyes widened in terror, her hands raised in a silent plea for mercy. But I knew, mercy was not something the general understood. Before I could even think of what to do next, there was another sound, a crashing noise from behind the door where the soldier had come. Heavy footsteps approached rapidly. The general turned, momentarily distracted by the chaos outside. The door burst open again, and several armed guards stormed in. But whose side were they on?